There's a reason why every single football player in the history of the world does at least like a B+ impression of their head coach, because coaches are their characters. They have their sayings. It's 100%. One of his was every bye week, the entire bye week, right? Usually you'd get off till like Tuesday or Wednesday. But once we were back on the practice field, he'd be going around just screaming at the quarterbacks, screaming at the defensive backs. It's not a bye week. It's a get better week. It's just over and over and over again. And of course, rather than remembering important bits of information or directions, places, my brain's like, let's never forget it's not a bye week, it's a get better week. Let's keep that in prime real estate in your brain, and you're just going to remember that until your time on this earth is over. But it is something that I come back to when teams go on bye weeks, and I'm talking about them. NC State had a bye week this past week. It's not a bye week, it's a get better week. Right? It's not a bye week where you're just waiting for time to pass by. It's a get better week where you have an opportunity to work on you rather than having to focus so much on game plans and opponents and scouting reports because you don't have a game that weekend. The bye week changed NC State's football season last year. Can they do it again? Last year, State was 4-3. They were coming off an embarrassing loss to Duke. They were playing the QB shuffle. They had gone to MJ Morris after starting the season with Brennan Armstrong, and then they had a bye week. They came out of the bye week, boom, beat Clemson at home. Remember Peyton Wilson diving for the end zone after the interception? One of the cooler pictures in sports last year. Just an athlete fully extended, reaching out for the end zone. Boom, beat Miami at home the next week. Not exactly this year's Miami, but still a good win. Boom, beat Wake Forest on the road. Virginia Tech on the road. UNC at home to end the season on a 5-game win streak. That's all coming out of the bye. What was the difference between the team that went into the bye, off the loss against Duke, 4-3, everybody's reeling, and the team that won their last 5 and powered on through to the Pop-Tarts Bowl? They figured out their star freshman. Casey Concepcion. At the bye, they truly, I believe, went back, watched film of their offense, and went, all right, he's been good, but we need to test how good this guy can be. Let's put in plays that we wouldn't just have in our basic template playbook that we have to put in because we have this unique talent. Right? If you have, let me think of this, like Madden NFL Football, the video game, if you have 2004 Mike Vick on your roster, if anyone that played Madden in 04 knows exactly what I'm talking about, Mike Vick was an absolute cheat code.
100%.
But you have Peyton Manning's playbook. Not going to be the best for you, right? Peyton Manning's I operate in a 4x4 box right here in the pocket, and I don't like to leave that. If those are the plays you have designed, not great. But, at your bye week, if you're like, hey, we got this guy that runs a 4-3, let's put in some plays that take advantage of that, you'll be better on the other side of the bye. They did that with Casey Concepcion. Pre-bye, so the 7 games before the bye last year, Casey Concepcion had 5 carries. 5 handoffs, 5 running plays. So not catches. He was a great wide receiver from the jump last year, especially starting with that UVA game. But he had 5 carries. So the versatility wasn't being used. He ran for 39 rushing yards before the bye. After the bye week, in 2 less games, so 7 pre-bye games, 5 post-bye games, he had 33 carries for 258 yards rushing in the 5 post-bye games. They figured it out. Got their running game going, which was a problem before the bye last year and has been a problem before the bye this year for NC State. Matter of fact, let's hear from Dave Doeren on his assessment of the run game so far.
We have 3 backs averaging over 4 yards a carry, but when you look at our total run game numbers, they're not good because of the negative yardage plays we've had with sacks and TFLs. And so, it's inconsistent. It's not where we want it to be yet. But it's not a failure either. And I think you also get behind in a couple games where you stop running the football. And so we need to be better there.
Yeah, you do need to be better there. Need to figure it out. So what should they do? How do they do it? I'll tell you. I got the answer. At least what I think is the answer. Figure out your star freshman. Last year before the bye, you didn't know the gem you had in Casey Concepcion. This year before the bye, I don't believe you understand the gem you have in your starting quarterback, CJ Bailey. Figure out the star freshman even more. Just like just like Casey Concepcion, they're good on the people with the initials as first names. Not great for me remembering which one is which as I talk fast. Just like Casey Concepcion was good, borderline great before the bye last year, they unlocked him more after the bye. CJ Bailey has been good, bordering on great before the bye this year. You could argue he is the best true freshman quarterback in the entire country. As far as FBS true freshmen starting, right? We're talking power conference. We'll even limit it to. It's a two-person race. It's Dylan Raiola at Nebraska and it's CJ Bailey at NC State. And CJ Bailey has a better passer rating, better touchdown to interception ratio, better completion percentage, and better yards per attempt. The only thing he's kind of looking up at Raiola in is total yards per game. But he also has a clunker weighing down his average because he played like 5 snaps against Tennessee at the end and didn't complete a pass.
Yeah, there's a couple other times where he came in after McCall got hurt, which will skew that number as well.
Even more so. So he's averaging about 6 less passes per game, 20 less yards per game. I believe you give him 6 more passes, he comes up with 20 more yards. He's leading in everything. So you might have the best true freshman quarterback in the country. Well, he was doing that in someone else's offense. You designed this offense, right? Because what is Robert Anai's thing? The offensive coordinator. His calling card. The reason why everyone's so excited about him when they are excited about him is he looks at the players on his roster and he crafts the offense to their abilities. Dave Doeren has told us that. That's part of what Robert Anai does well. I remember covering him at UVA as the offensive coordinator. That was something that was said about him there. When he was the offensive coordinator at Syracuse, that was something that was said about him there. So now he's here in Raleigh coaching for State, and he built a whole offense around Grayson McCall. McCall gets hurt multiple times, ends up retiring. CJ Bailey steps in, might be the best true freshman quarterback in the country, and he did that in someone else's custom-fit offense. The analogy I used off air, and I kind of like it, so I'm going to give it to you here. He showed up at the combine and didn't have spikes, didn't have cleats. This actually happened to Calvin Johnson, by the way. I don't think he was going to run, right? Didn't think he was going to run. Got there, got competitive, said, you know what? I'm going to run a 40-yard dash. Took someone else's cleats. I believe it was actually the ECU quarterback, Pinckney. Remember him? I think they were his cleats. He had like extras that were the right size. Threw them on Calvin Johnson's feet, ran like the 4.3 or 4.4, whatever he ran. Ran a 4.4 in someone else's cleats. That's what CJ Bailey has been doing. He's got someone else's gear on and he ran a 4.4. This bye week is about finding his own cleats. And guess what? He has some wiggle, right? If everything's about fixing the run game, CJ Bailey can go a little bit, right? He's a different quarterback than Grayson McCall. He doesn't have the concussion history that Grayson McCall had, so maybe you're a little more willing to get him out on the edge. Maybe it is more read, keep, option, RPO game. Maybe you take the success he's had as a passer, particularly as of the last 2 games, and transition that into a way to open up the run game. Maybe you look at it and you go, hey, we got this guy Hollywood Smothers. He has a couple of monster plays. He's a running back, but his monster plays are all passes. He has a 76-yard catch. He has a 60-yard catch. How do we get him in space in the running game? It's figuring out your young guys. That's what they can do on the bye. People love to come up with reasons. I call it the sports movie effect. People love to I name my theories way too much. People love to come up with like narrative, story-driven, rah reasons for things getting better. There's usually like a concrete reason, right? If you talk to somebody that's a fan of NC State last year, they say that it turned around when they bound themselves together. Right when Brennan Armstrong was a grown bleep man, when they rallied around the ones that wanted to be there, they found their soul and they fought. I actually think it's more like, well, they finally got a running game because they realized Casey Concepcion was a special player that could do it all. You know, the same as like Mighty Ducks. Oh, they won because Gordon Bombay taught them to love the game of hockey. Or they redrew the district lines to get the best player in the league off the Hawks and on the Ducks. It's a bank story, if we're being honest. Find any 9-year-old sports league where you don't go from worst to first if you get the best player on the league. There's usually a concrete reason for it. NC State's concrete reason for getting better this year, I believe, is figuring out CJ Bailey, some guy you need to put more on his plate, custom tailor the offense to him, and come out of the bye week more efficient, depending on your quarterback, than you were before. It's like acquiring Banks and Mighty Ducks. Benny the Jet in Sandlot. There's one forever. You ever seen the Big Green?
I don't think I've seen
the
a
soccer
Green,
movie
no.
starring Steve Guttenberg.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about.
It's all about Juan. He's the best soccer player for miles. Of course your team's going to get better when you get the best player. If you have the best true freshman quarterback in the country, use him.